Transformation means looking at today, but as much looking tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, not preparing only for yesterday, because as I always like to say, more of the same is not the solution. So the solution will not be more tanks, more ships, or more aircraft.
Hey Space Watchers, and welcome to another episode of our Space Café Radio. And today we are diving into the heart of transformation, not just within the NATO or the Bundeswehr, but within the space and intelligence community that underpins that. My guest is General Retired Chris Badia, former NATO Deputy Supreme Allied Commander Transformation ACT and the highest ranking German soldier at NATO. We will talk about transformation as a mindset, Germany's emerging role as a military space power, and how space data and command structures are reshaping modern defense. General Badia, how are you doing today?
Torsten, first of all, thank you very much. Great to be with you and really looking forward to that. I'm always fine. And when it comes to space, of course, future-oriented, I'm always good.
As you just finished your services, let's talk a bit about the NATO transformations, the lessons and the legacy. You led NATO's Allied Command Transformation, an organization designed to make the allies fit for the future. When you look back, what are the toughest parts of the transformation within NATO?
The toughest part is always really creating exactly that awareness that you need to go for transformation. You need to look into the future, because everybody agrees. Of course we do that. But at the end of the day, the reality is the urgent always wins over the importance. And the urgent, from a NATO Allied Command Transformation perspective, always was, quite rightly, it's Europe, it's looking towards to the east, it's Ukraine, it's the war, it's defending Europe. While if you do not think at the same time the importance, thinking about what's happening 2030, 2035, 2040, and this is where you in a space arena. So what the biggest danger is, if you don't combine it, you always prepare for the war of yesterday.
That's an interesting statement. Could you explore a bit what transformation meant cultural and in terms of structural change, not just technological? What is potentially the easy part of it?
It is. The hardest part in transformation, and I would say you can also transfer that to a lot of phases in life, is culture. Because if transformation is not reaching out into the right culture, the willingness of everybody involved in it, you don't change anything. What do I mean by that? If you go and say, we are, and we might come to that, military operations nowadays are thought in 5 military domains. This is air, land and sea, cyber and space. But if you see today, everybody is too much into air, land, and sea, and not so much in cyber and space, not so much in new technology, emerging disruptive. What do I mean by that? If I ask a tanker man from the army, what's the most important weapon system in the future for you, he still will tell you it's the main battle tank. Where I would say, no, it's artillery, for instance. You need to reach 300 or 400 kilometers deep into enemy's territory. So you have to have a total different thinking. You have to have a total different approach when you come to transformation. But if you don't think outside the box, and that's a cultural aspect. And this is why, for instance, it's so important that NATO holds that Allied Command Transformation, because you need to have people, day in, day out, they think about the future. They think as much fighting tonight, but they think more about fighting tomorrow. They combine it. And this is how you maintain and keep the advantage of the alliance overall.
But isn't that exactly what you as military could learn from the Ukraine battlefield? The days of Clausewitz are over.
I would say the principles of Clausewitz, they will be always relevant. But what you have to see today, this is exactly what it is. You need to be a lot faster, you need to be a lot more innovative, and you need to overcome hurdles, especially in the mind of people. But, and I tell you, and I hope that NATO, Western allies, that they accept exactly what we are seeing, that they become aware of this urgency and that they're really speeding up and not learning it through another Pearl Harbor effect, that you learn it late, you saw it coming, but you did not change up front. And this is something where, if you quote things from Ukraine, this is exactly what we're seeing, because there is no other choice. If you want to survive, you need to be faster, you need to be more innovative. But, in the past, we had lots of time. We didn't have that much money, but we had a lot of time and waiting for things. Those days are over. And still coming back to my cultural aspect, from a people's mindset, the culture, we are still not there.
Let's shift a bit gears and have a look at Germany's path to become a military space power. And here now we're trying to focus a bit more on the space side as one of the 5 domains. You've watched Germany evolve from a supporting nation to a country that now aspires to become a true military space power. How do you assess this transformation?
Transformation is much more needed. And I would not fully agree to what you just said, because Germany needs to become a much more than just a space power. Germany needs to become a military power. In order to become the most modern military power, you need to look at all 5 domains, whereas of space is of utmost importance as well. So this is the way I would see it. Why do I say that? Because it's easy said, but if you see, and my experience and also my foresight is, there will be never enough resources to really have everything available the way you would like to have it. So what you do need to do is you need to strengthen your combat power through innovation. And in order to do that, you need to think new technologies. And now when you think new technologies, now you think space, you think cyber, you think AI, you think quantum computing, hypersonics, so a lot of things. The question at the end of the day is, what do I need to acquire? What do I need to incorporate in my existing system in order to strengthen it and that it becomes a lot more effective and more combat power? All of this, and that comes back to a lot of people still don't like what I say, we need to be a lot more dominant. We need to have dominance within our military operations in order to survive.
I do have to apologize that I have a polarized view on the space side on that.
If I would have a space talk, it's of course, but I always want to bring people back and say, you need to think the whole spectrum.
Where do you see the main challenges now for Germany in that transformation, organizationally, politically, or industrial, in getting there?
It's exactly what I said before. The solution will be having it interconnected, having it digitalized, and now it comes having information dominance and having decision dominance. And if you look at information and decision dominance, automatically you look into space.
Let's discuss the cultural hesitancy. Not just in Germany, it's not a German privilege, but we are good in that. Interoperability and the pace of capacity building. Where do we stand? You had the last 3 years, this outside view from the NATO side, and I'm quite sure you looked at Germany as well. So how do you assess where we stand today in Germany?
First of all, I think Germany needs to accept a lot more that from its economic power, from its position in Europe, and I just made the case, from a Europe-NATO perspective, Germany is number 2 in NATO after the US, and thereafter is following the UK and France. So Germany is the number 2 in NATO. And sometimes it starts in the political arena. It starts with the political leadership. This needs to be accepted on one hand. And then, of course, it needs to be thought through and said, what does it mean? What role does Germany have to play? And our German chancellor said it quite right. He said Germany needs to become the largest conventional, I would make an addition, the largest conventional and modern army within Europe in order to really have that strength. Germany needs to accept, and that's even seen when I talk to my Polish colleagues, everybody says, why are you not going? We trust you. Go ahead, play that leadership role. We need you. So this is where Germany is still coming back to cultural aspect, coming back to transformation. So first of all, it's a political aspect. And then once it's pretty clear where politics, where the mainstream of German country needs to go, wants to go, I think industry will follow, economy will follow. And then, but not only then, in accompanying the whole arguments as we go, it needs to be a much broader discussion within German society to understand what it means.
Exactly. And I want to go into this direction. We are more or less same age and we carry the burden of our own history. That is how we were brought up.
Yeah, but I'm not accepting that argument anymore.
Okay, please go on. What is needed to make this change in Germany?
We need to have a much broader discussion and also accepting the fact, past 1945, all the allies helped Germany. We know what the heritage out of history, and I think we know it very well, and always bringing this argument in saying, but history tells us there is more than that. I would say, let's also look at past 1945, what the role of Germany is, what the responsibility responsibility of Germany is and the role we can play, of course, within all the alliances, with everything we are vested in, be it EU, be it NATO, be it United Nations. There is no Germany that goes by itself. But Germany and the society, I think they should have a much more deeper discussion on what the role, the responsibility of Germany is.
If you would give an advice to our today's military and political leadership in Germany, what would you tell them how to make this transition real? If you do in 1, 2, 3, and I know that's on a very broad level.
That's come out of your comfort zone. This is really what it is. The fact is, Germany needs to play a strong leadership role within the European Union, but within the cohesion of the European Union, within the cohesion of Europe and NATO. So there is no way Germany just goes by itself. Nobody thinks that. And I can tell you, the military definitely does not think this. So we always think in alliances. But this needs to really to be overcome, and that needs to be a top-down approach. Because if you are aware that you say, okay, my resources are limited, this is where we go. Now you need to adopt the structure, you need to adopt the capabilities, always to the point where can we do the most in order to take that leadership role. And this is a lot of change, and this is coming out of your comfort zone, overcoming certain restrictions, overcoming certain hurdles, and explaining to your people, this is where we need to go to play the role it's expected from us.
Let's look a bit on Germany within NATO, so coordination and command. So how can coordination between national space commands, and we are back in the space bubble, and the allies be made more effective without adding just another layer of bureaucracy and paperwork?
I fully agree. That's not helpful at all. I am very much a big friend of use cases. You can analyze lots of things. At the end of the day, the issue is how do you really solve your problem, and if you come with use cases against it. And what we do see too often is if nations, there are a lot of them out there, if they have certain restrictions, if they have certain concerns, then of course they install more levels of coordination, making it harder. And I fully agree, this is not the way forward. So what you really need to have and start with is how do you share? Information sharing, need to know a lot easier. And because also, when I go from space, when I go a space situational awareness, all the data I have. So the question is, NATO is ready. NATO could do a lot more, but NATO is nations. So the nations need to allow NATO taking a much stronger coordination role. We are not there. This is, of course, it takes time. There need to be discussions. And then comes back to having use cases where everybody sees what are we doing with the information, with the data we are doing, how do we share that? Because I tell you, NATO is 32 nations. By the way, NATO is 32 nations plus 35 partners. But those 32 nations in itself, half of them, they have more or less good space capabilities. The rest doesn't. And they need to participate. They need to see this is trust and confidence. Share it right now. Because right now, when it comes to cyber or to space, you always will hear the argument, it's a national issue, it's a national restraint, capability stays with the nation. If you need it, NATO, we will provide it to you.
I love this use case or that case scenario that you just brought up. How can we overcome this national restriction when we talk about sensitive, when we talk about classified data? I mean, there will be always a core that is really national. I don't touch that, but there is this gray zone where you say, I can provide it to you. Otherwise, you build the same capability in your house. And that's then not effective.
We're discussing that already since a while, but we need to discuss it much harder. Need to know versus need to share. Because need to know, this is always, it's restricted or it's classified, I cannot show that to you. The way, if you just look at space, even space reconnaissance, you just take space images from the whole world daily. You overcome this information almost daily. So from a use case point of view, what's so secret about it if you have it every day new? And if you can share it, if you go for change detection, if you know what's going on. So the question, is it more important to share? Or is it more important just who knows what? No, I think it's more important to share it. And this is where it comes back to, then everybody participates in that and you have a much better situational awareness overall what's happening. You have much better decisions and then you have a stronger coalition.
On that matter, when we go step up again, here, do you see a need for a new kind of integrated command architecture? So one that connects air, cyberspace, and the other domains with decision-making at the operational level, so multi-domain command and control.
Yeah. What you will see, again, as I said, people always looking at the operational part, while LA Command Transformation a lot of times look at what's necessary from doctrine concepts point of view. And when we came along, we knew multi-domain operation is one part of it. Cross command and control within the domains is one, but it's absolutely essential having a digital backbone and being fully digitalized in order to do that. If you think that's true, and again, comes back to use cases, how you can show that, you will see automatically that big headquarters of 1,500 or 2,000 people are not future-proof anymore. But if you have the digitalization first, if you know what the products are, if you know how to share that information in a much greater, better, faster way, and now being AI assisted in your decision making, then you see, yes, there will be a change in command and control. I am fully convinced it will be always the decisions are vested within human loop, but you need a lot more assistance in analysis and decision making through AI. And then you will see the change comes over time, changing to the better, but you get to a leaner and smaller C2 structure.
General Badia, you have to be on stage in a minute, literally in a minute. So I don't want to hold you back. I thank you very much for your time. I hope we will have a chance to have a further conversation here to look into things like GeoInt and things that are very close to my heart as well. But thank you very much for your time today and all the best.
Thank you very much. It was great talking to you. Thank you.
If you have further questions, reach out to us at radio@SpaceWatch.Global. If you like these or other episodes of Space Café Radio, leave us a rating on your preferred podcast platform. It is the currency of today. And if you want to stay on the pulse of the space industry, please visit our website at www.SpaceWatch.Global and subscribe to our newsletters. And of course, don't forget to become a Space Watcher. I'm Torsten Kriening, publisher at SpaceWatch.Global, your independent perspective on space.